I am Maria Erica Manarpiis, and I'm going to discuss sound ratings. Sa pagdidesign, pag-ooperate, at sa construction ng building or projects ay napaka-importante na ikonsidera yung sound control dahil maaaring makaapekto yung mga unwanted noise sa kalusugan sa pakikipag-communicate at sa pagiging produktibo. Kaya kinakailangan na lahat ng spaces or sulok ay covered mula sa mga ingay na nanggagaling sa labas. So katulad ng ingay na nanggagaling sa sakyan or sa kapitbahay. So sound within a space must also be controlled. So meron tayong tinatawag na sound isolation. So when we say sound isolation, it is the ability to block the sound transmission from one room to another. So sound isolation between rooms and floor levels and noise reduction within a room are measured by several single number rating system. Transmission ratings. Sound rating system that evaluates the transmission of sound through a construction assembly. Example, partitions, walls, ceilings, and floors are as follows. So we have sound transmission class. So the sound transmission class or STC is a single number rating system that rates the ability of a wall or other construction materials to block sound transmission. The higher the STC, the more efficient the construction is, meaning it blocks the transmission of sound from one side of the assembly to the other. So dito sinusukat yung kakayahan ng materials na i-block yung sound. So always remember na kapag mataas yung rating, mas maraming sound na nabablock or nahaharangan yung materials na ginagamit. So kapag naman lower rating siya, you will hear almost everything happening on the other side, and you will even be able to understand someone speaking softly on the other side. So STC is a highly dependent on the construction of the partition. A partition's STC can be increased by, first, adding mass. So the weight or thickness of a partition is the major factor in its ability to block sound. So the thicker, the better. Second, increasing or adding airspace. An airspace within a partition can also help to increase sound isolation. Third, adding absorptive materials in the partition. Sound absorptive materials can be installed inside of a partition airspace to further increase its STC rating. In this slide, I will show you some sample walls assemblies. First, 3 and 5/8 inches metal stud and 5/8 inches gypsum with 2 layers total and no insulation. The estimated STC rating is 38 to 40, and this is what it looks like. Next, 3 and 5/8 inches metal studs and 5/8 inches gypsum with 2 layers total and batt insulation. The estimated STC rating is 43 to 44, and this is what it looks like. So insulation will noticeably improve the STC rating of an assembly. So the 2x4 stud, 5/8 inches gypsum with 2 layers total and batt insulation, the estimated STC rating is 34 to 39. So for wall assembly, this is what it looks like. Next, 3 and 5/8 inches metal studs and 5/8 inches gypsum with 2 layers total and batt insulation. The estimated STC rating is 43 to 44, and this is what it looks like. So metal studs wall perform better than wood studs. So note, this only applies to single stud assemblies. For double stud assemblies, there is a virtually no difference. For 2x4 stud, 5/8 inches gypsum with 2 layers in total, and batt insulation estimated STC rating is 34 to 39. So this is what the wall assembly look like. Next is 2x4 stud 5/8 inches gypsum with 4 layers total and batt insulation with the estimated STC rating of 43 to 45. And this is what it looks like. Adding additional layers of drywalls can improve the STC rating of an assembly. For 2x4 stud and 5/8 inches gypsum with a 4 layers total and batt insulation, the estimated STC rating is 44 to 45. So this is what the wall assembly looks like. Next, 2x4 studs and 5/8 inches gypsum with 2 layers total and batt insulation. So the STC rating is 56 to 59, and this is what the wall assembly looks like. So for 2x4 studs and 5/8 inches gypsum with 3 layers total batt insulation, the estimated STC rating is 59 to 60, and this is the wall assembly. For 2x4 studs and 5/8 inches gypsum with a 4-layer total and batt insulation with the estimated STC rating of 58 to 63, this is what it looks like. So drywall between double studs can dramatically reduce the STC rating of an assembly. For the STC rating chart, for 25 rating STC, so the soft speech can be heard and understood. For the STC 30, normal speech can be heard and understood. For 35, loud speech can be heard and understood. For 40, loud speech can be heard but not understood. For 45, the threshold at which privacy begins. For 50, loud sounds can be heard but are very faint. And for 60 plus and above, at this level, good soundproofing begins. Neighbors generally are not distributed by very loud speech from inside. So according sa mga researches, ang recommended na STC is 55 and yung ideal naman is 60 and above, especially sa mga gagawing recording studios or music-related noise. Pero kung privacy lang naman ng conversation, okay na yung STC 45. For the transmission loss is the difference in decibels between a source room and a receiving room. So sa example, yung source room nakapag-produce siya ng 100 decibels. Pero ang na-transmit lang na sound sa receiving room ay 20 decibels. So kaya ang transmission loss niya ay 80. So next example, yung source room nakapag-produce ng 100 decibels. Pero sa receiving room, ang na-receive niya is 70 decibels. Kaya ang magiging transmission loss niya is 30. A high TL number is best because it indicates that most of the sound is staying inside the source room and not being transmitted into surrounded places. So, yung mga nakukuhang transmission loss value ay ipinaplot sa graph at ikino-compare siya sa standard set of sound transmission class or STC. So, yung magiging close matching contour niya, yung makakapagsabi ng STC rating ng isang materials. So, usually, isinasagawa ito sa mga laboratory para malaman yung ratings ng materials. Noise Isolation Class. So, the Noise Isolation Class or NIC is a single number rating used to measure noise reduction between two areas or rooms. It provides an evaluation of the sound isolation between two enclosed spaces that are acoustically connected by one or more paths. So NIC or noise isolated class ratings are based on field tests. The benefit of NIC is that the test is performed in the actual environment where product is installed. However, the ratings is highly dependent on the field condition of the tested places. This test compares to sound isolation between two spaces and takes into account the partition between the spaces as well as the sound absorption properties in the receiving spaces such as furniture. So, NIC rating is limited to the particular spaces and may not be achieved in another area of the building or another project. Next is the impact ratings. An impact sound is produced by the collision of two solid objects. Typical sources in a building are footsteps and objects dropped or thrown onto an interior surface. Impact sound ratings include the following: Impact Insulation Class or IIC is a number rating based on standard test performance for evaluating the effectiveness of assemblies in isolating impact sound transmission. So it measures a floor assembly's ability to absorb impact sound like footsteps, moving furnitures, or things dropping on the floor. So unlike STC is for airborne and minemeasure niya ay yung mga voices and music. So itong IIC and STC, so pareha siyang minemeasure sa mga laboratories. For the table, 23.11 shows the impact of insulation class or IIC ratings for selected floor ceiling assemblies compiled from various industries and government sources. So dito sa table, meron tayong example ng floor ceiling assembly na may indicated na impact insulation class rating. So the higher rating, the better. So isa nga sa mga materials na ginagamit ay ang tinatawag na noise reduction underlayment. So itong insulated felt mat na gawa sa recycled materials na kaya mag-absorb ng mga impact noises mula sa mga floors. So this type of material has a STC rating of 66 and an impact insulation class or IIC of 67. So which means it will mute walking and furniture sound transfer between floor levels. So, ganito na itsura niya kapag nilagay na siya sa floor. For impact noise rating. The impact noise rating or INR is an obsolete rating system that rates the ability of floor ceiling assemblies to resist the transmission of impact sound. So, itong INR, hindi na siya gaanong ginagamit kasi meron siyang mga disadvantages. So, isa nga sa mga disadvantages nitong INR ay wala na siyang relasyon or connection sa STC rating o sa sound transmission rating na ginagamit upang masukat yung ability ng isang materials na harangan or ma-block yung sound transmission. So, isa rin sa mga nagbibigay ng kalituhan sa mga gumagamit nito ay yung mga negative values na ginagamit sa impact noise ratings. Next is the absorption ratings. So, sound absorption is a property of materials that causes a reduction in the amount of sound reflected from a surface. High absorbing surfaces in a room will reduce sound intensity in that room by not reflecting all the sound energy striking the room's surfaces. Noise reduction coefficient. So when we say NRC rating, it tells us how much sound is absorbed by the product. So NRC is measured on a scale that ranges 0 to 1. So kapag 0, ibig sabihin yung product ay walang sound na na-absorb. At kapag naman siya ay 1, yung product naman ay na-absorb lahat ng sound. So, the higher the NRC, the better the product is at soaking up the sound. So, dahil nagkakaroon ng misconception about STC and NRC, so what is the difference between STC and NRC? So, STC rating tell us how much sound is blocked from going through the products. Kapag naman NRC rating tell us how much sound is absorbed by the product. So another one, STC is important when you are trying to reduce the amount of sound entering or leaving a room, while NRC is important when you are trying to reduce the echo and improve the sound quality in a room. This is an example of a material that is high in NRC rating. So it is called a acoustic panel ATS acoustics. It absorbs mid to high range noise, softening the feedback and making it cleaner. Next one is the ceiling attenuation class. Airborne sound transmission through ceilings. Typically, this will happen when adjacent spaces that connected by a common air plenum. This specification or CAC or the ceiling attenuation class is similar to STC, but in this case the measurement specific to controlling sound from one space to another over the ceiling. CAC is similar rating to STC, but in this case it is the rating that measures the efficiency of a suspended ceiling connected by a common air plenum. The higher the CAC rating, the better. Equipment noise. Noise from rooftop or mechanical room equipment can affect both occupants inside a building and nearby property owners. Typically, a building specification will require that mechanical equipment noise be less than a specific level in occupied areas of the building based upon the following ratings. For room criteria, so it is an alternative range of allowable background noise in a building or room that was developed in the 1980s. So it is measured in the range of 16 Hz to 4000 Hz or 4 kHz. So however, RC looks at sound at much lower frequency level to accounting for rumbling HVAC equipment. So, yung frequency na ginagamit dito is mas mababa kung ikukumpara doon sa noise criteria. So, ito rin is na-develop noong 1980s. So, kung ikukumpara sa noise criteria, na-develop yung noise criteria noong 1950s. So, this is an example of a table for a room criteria. It has a type of room space type, recommended RC level or RC curve, equivalent sound level with a weighted decibels. This is also a table for a room criteria. Next is the noise criteria. So, noise criteria was developed in the 1950s and was most often used in United States to depict the acceptable range of background noise in a space. It is measured in the range of 63 Hz to 8000 Hz or 8 kHz. So this table is for noise criteria. So it has a type of room, space type, with recommended noise criteria level and noise criteria curve, and also the equipment sound level with the weighted decibels. There's also a table for a noise criteria.